As a final note from me, though this expansion is named End of Dragons, I want to be abundantly clear, this is not the end of Guild Wars 2. We view End of Dragons as the next big stepping stone for this franchise, and we think the best is yet to come.
You know what I find funny though? This video views skyrocketed in like one day. So I think that he saw this because I said him and CMC need to be fired, and this is what he put at the end of his post. Finally, I'd like to thank those of you who have approached this discussion in a civil manner. To those that have chosen extreme toxicity, call for developers to be fired or sent death threats. You're not welcome in our community. So what are you trying to say? You gonna ban me? He made this post the day after it got backfire. Not only that, how do you equate death threats and calling for somebody to be fired the same thing? How do you lump that together? Now I'm going to read you the screenshots from that post. Honestly, this follow-up is just as bad as the patch. I don't understand how a developer can look at this and tell the community that their feedback matters. You are pushing through essentially your most hated up-to-date to create this patch. You allow a dev to buff the class he likes with no real reasoning given, while ignoring an entire Discord specifically crafted to have the best players the game has to offer give their input on balance, especially for a dev who needs to use the wiki to balance because he can't actually be bothered to play every class and learn its mechanics, even if it's purely for research. As a main balance dev, all you've shown is that at the end of the day, your consumers really don't matter to you and you're completely out of touch. It's just disappointing that this patch and surrounding issues is ignorance and malice that ANET doesn't care to correct in order to make Guild Wars 2 a better and more enjoyable experience. They thought this was okay to add to the game. This is all auto attack. I don't main NG. What the hell is this? How did it get approved? Yes, death threats are abhorrent and have no place in any kind of community. However, I don't believe that players saying that the developers are not capable of executing their job is an issue. We have seen that they are out of their depth and are playing favorites. This completely breaks the trust that the players have with their balance team. Listen to me. Nobody just wakes up one day and wants to be mad at the developer for a video game. This has been going on for years. This is not something that just started yesterday and everybody's just angry for no reason. Death threats are inexcusable. Calling for someone who has no business being the head of a balance team to not be in charge of balance decision is not. To call people toxic for pointing out bad employees, heads of departments no less, who don't know enough about the game, have incredibly flippant and disrespectful attitude towards a portion of the player base, further confirms that the word toxic has no meaning. Now you're probably like, come on Hadi, you just cherry picking and you choosing the comments you want to choose. But of course I'm doing that, because I have to show you that not everybody agrees with this and I'm not the only one. I can put the link in the description and you can go read the comments yourself. It's more people that disagree with this patch than there are people that agree with it. Another thing that I haven't seen any of the death threats. Can somebody please send me a screenshot of that? Because I haven't seen that at all. And of course, I don't agree with people sending death threats. And if it is somebody doing that, they need to stop that because that's not appropriate. If you don't like the game, don't play it. That's as simple as that. But I'm so passionate, I want the devs to understand that they're doing something wrong. But trying to lump together death threats and calling for somebody to be fired, that's not right at all. Death threats are extreme, yes, but you cannot possibly ignore the fact that if any of us had interacted with a customer like that in another line of work as we saw in that Discord, we'd have been immediately looking for another job. If you're going to hold your customers to a certain standards, the minimum you could do is the same for your employees. Imagine lumping together death threats and calls for developers to be fired as the same thing under extreme toxicity. Do you want a community or a company town? Because right now, it's looking like you want a company town. There's nothing civil about the way this company has been handling this situation, much less what brought it on. Part of what brought on such calls for firing in the first place was leaked uncivil words about the community. Then your mods proceed to delete every thread that even vaguely mentions it without names. This isn't your community. The players have built and maintained this community for you over the years and paid you for the tools that you provided for doing so. That's where it being your community ends. You can, of course, exclude whoever you want when you want. You can delete this whenever you want. In technical legal terms, your company has that kind of control over this community. But if you boot people out of the community who care about it, if you treat the community like they're immature because you couldn't handle the criticism that came your way when you messed up, expect that community to shrink. Take it for granted. Talk down to the people who support your game, and your companies will find every single time that people can find better places to contribute their time and energy. The message you are sending is clear. Give tepid feedback that can be easily ignored, and we will welcome you into the community. Get loud enough that we are forced to actually acknowledge what's happening instead of the usual tweaks around the edges, and you aren't welcome. That's what it boils down to. You, the company, are mad you have to actually do something this time. Of course, you would much prefer people who put up with it and pay silently. That's the ideal customer for you, I'm sure. Now, this isn't my typical video, and YouTube is the only voice that I have. Because every time I post on the forums or I post on Reddit, it gets taken down or I get infracted, and they don't like criticism. And my hopes is that the developers see this and actually put forth effort in listening to the players instead of saying that they are and then going against them. If you're talking about you're already in the works of making another expansion, y'all should just cancel that right now, because you got way too many problems on your hand.